let's have another question. And again, I feel slightly embarrassed here that the questions seem to be coming from me rather than the audience. The question is, what key issues are cropping up in the selling of businesses which owner-managers need to address before marketing their businesses for sale? I mean, Nick, you're obviously the prime candidate to answer this, as this is your meat and drink, other than procurement, of course. So do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to. It follows on from what we've just been discussing. I think if you're going to be selling your business or preparing it, the first thing your buyer is going to look at are your people, and how you've treated them, how you've kept them, and the influence they have on the business going forward, because they will assume that you have disappeared to your yacht or your tropical island, and that they will have to continue the business and expand it, grow it, with the people that you've developed. So, yes, I think the human capital, I think, is what they call it, but basically it's the people who run your business and who have the relationship with your customers. The other thing I'd say is more of a housekeeping thing. At some stage in the selling process, your buyer will send in teams or their own in-house accountants, lawyers, and people to do their due diligence. It'll be financial, it'll be accounting, it'll be legal, and getting those people on your side by ensuring that the things they look at are well ordered and accessible, and that they can see that the business is well run, just efficient, straightforward efficiency, will pay enormous dividends later on. Because if there is a hiccup in the process, and there usually is, because something happens, a customer is lost, or the supply chain is broken, you will have demonstrated that you have the efficiency and you have the people to solve that problem. And if you have the buyer talking to its professional advisors and saying, is this a good business? Are there any amber or red lights along the way? If you've got a well-run business and it's efficient, then hopefully you will get them saying, yeah, it's a small hiccup, this is a good business, carry on with the purchase.
What are the deal breakers that you come across more often than not?
Deal breakers are often key people, going back to that same thing. If a buyer is uncertain about whether an individual who is key or critical is going to stay or go, that may be an issue. That's relatively easily solved if the buyer and those key people can talk together and talk terms. But very often, a seller, for very good reasons, will not want to expose that kind of expose the business in that way. And the other, of course, is relationship with customers. Is that relationship going to be the same or better after the sale? It's a big question for a buyer. It's often one that goes to the very wire. If, again, the question of contact comes into it, because the seller does not want a buyer talking to its key customers in advance of the sale.
Mike, do you want to lob in some pearls of wisdom?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when we get called into this type of work, normally after the buyer's been found, and normally when they're doing their due diligence, the staggering thing is that's when we normally get the phone call and someone says, have we got any pension liabilities, Mike? And you think, well, shouldn't you have found this out months ago before you even went looking for the buyer in the first place? And so I think the first thing is, if you're going to sell your business, you should have a review before you even start the process. In fact, I might suggest you have a review from an external source whilst you're still trying to build the business up, so that you know where you're building it to. And a good friend of mine who's just finalised the sale of a wealth management business did that 5 years ago. And 5 years later, he sold it for a lot more than he would have done 5 years ago, because he had the intelligence to call somebody in to tell him exactly what he needed to do. I think the other thing, which goes without saying, but again, it's quite staggering, some of the clients that we have spoken to who've missed this, is, you need to throw your skeletons out of the cupboard before you start putting yourself on the market, because once they start finding skeletons in your cupboard, they're not going to be quite so interested in buying you in the first place, which kind of forms part of that pre-sale review. And then the final thing, which is after you've got your buyer, and we see this all the time, unfortunately, and I still don't know how to advise clients to do this, we advise them, and that is once you've got your buyer, don't take your eye off the ball, because 9 times out of 10, the deal isn't going to get done anyway. And you might find that by the time you realise the deal hasn't been done, your turnover's down, your profits are down, because you've been concentrating so much on selling the business that you've forgotten to run it.
Yeah, nice point, nice point. Stephen, have you got any sort of views from your side of the fence about the sales of SMEs?
Yeah, I mean, I began my working life as an M&A lawyer in Boston, so I've been involved in lots of transactions. And I guess just to supplement a couple of points that colleagues have made from the panel, first of all, understand in your own mind why you're selling the business. Is it family issues? Is it you're leaving it to your children and there's tension? Is it market issues? Do you need the money? Make sure you got a clear vision as to why you're going to do it. Secondly, assume that the bad news will come out. Be transparent. Don't pretend that you don't have problems when you do, or hope that they won't be discovered, because the whole process, the whole system has gotten much more sophisticated, and these things have a way of coming out. So identify the issues, as has been said, and give yourself enough time to think about how you're going to tackle those and have a good explanation for what they are. Don't hope they aren't found, because they will be found.
Yeah. If I can just beat the tax drum, obviously a crucial issue on a sale are the tax issues. So get tax advice. That's my tip. But you might need to think about doing some restructuring. You might need to consider how much capital gains tax you're going to pay on the sale and whether it's the right amount or it's too much, because you may not qualify for relief that you think you will. So, clearly you will need to do some kind of tax due diligence before you go too much further.